You are about to see a series of paper snowflakes with pictures cut into them, illustrating the biblical story of the 10 pre-flood patriarchs, from Adam to Noah, followed by the story of Noah and the flood. It will be interpreted here as the story of human development, from infancy to early childhood, and will be seen to line up with old ideas of the cosmic order. Out of the earth, God created Adam. The joy and terror of the initial event. Adam in Hebrew means human, and a closely related word, Adamah, means red earth. So here we see him coming up out of the red earth, like an infant being born. Adam begat Seth. Seth means substitute. So here we see basically the same figure, a little further along, with the rough edges of excitement rounded off into repetitive routine, like the cycles of the moon. And here, in this picture, you might see several phases of the moon, with the center now being the new moon. Seth begat Enosh. Now, Enosh means mortal, and mortality is basically the space in time that is opened up for each of us. So here we see a figure opening up its space, which for an infant includes physical space, as its world begins to expand. At the top is a celestial body representing the planet Mercury. Enosh begat Kenan. Kenan means house. So now we have a playpen, which is the infant's new house. And a house is the mother's domain. So overhead we see the feminine planet, Venus. And we're beginning to see how the patriarchs line up with stages in the old cosmology, with the Earth at the bottom, then the Moon, Mercury, and now Venus. The Sun comes next. Kenan begat Mahalalel. Mahalalel means praise of God. Here we have the glorious moment when the infant first stands up unassisted. Glory all around, including a sun at the center. Mahalalel begat Jared. Jared means descend. So we have stand up followed by fall down. And this is at the level of the 5th planet, Mars. Nowhere in the Bible are the archetypal meanings for the planets spelled out. But I think the 5th planet stood for the Pentateuch, the law, education. And there's nothing more educating than making mistakes, falling down. And here the toddler is learning about the law of gravity. Jared begat Enoch, who was taken up. Enoch is the only patriarch of whom it was said, God took him, and he was no more. His name means initiate or train up. So after stand up and fall down, we have being picked up, which is a transformative event. And this is at the level of the 6th planet, Jupiter, the archetypal meaning of which was probably fatherhood. Enoch begat Methuselah. Here we see a figure surrounded by all of the planets, which in the ancient world included the sun and the moon. Above are the fixed stars yet to be entered. Methuselah is at the level of the last planet, Saturn. Methuselah means ages, and Saturn takes the longest time of all the planets to travel its orbit. And Methuselah is reputed to have lived the longest life, some 969 years. Methuselah begat Lamech. Lamech means subdued. So here we see a figure floating among the slowly moving fixed stars, where souls of the dead were thought to reside. Incidentally, all of the patriarchs, including Adam, were still alive at the time Lamech was born. Their long lives symbolize how time moves very slowly in early childhood. And just as in grade school, where it might be said the first grader begets the second grader, who begets the third grader, and so on, but none of them die, just further layers of knowledge are added. So in this story of the patriarchs as stages of early childhood, all of them are still alive at the time of Lamech. But this is soon to change. Lamech begat Noah, and Noah walked with God. So here we see a figure surrounded by an aura, the light of God. And for the first time, the eyes are opened. Now this is beyond the fixed stars. Here is where God resides, and there is absolute stillness. And Noah's name means stillness or quiet. Thus, early human development was seen by the ancients to line up with the cosmic order, from Adam, with the red earth at the bottom, to Noah, with God in heaven above. Noah begat Shem, Ham, and Japheth. Shem means honor. He's at the top. Then comes Ham. His name means passion. Below him is Japheth, meaning mental and moral expansion. Thus, being quiet produces honor, passion, and expansion of the mind. Now, the wickedness of humans was great. Their thoughts were evil continuously. So now we start the story leading up to the flood, which is basically the story of the terrible 2s or 3s when the toddler is rebellious and out of control. The earth was filled with violence. Rebellion produces conflict. This is the me, no stage of development. We failed to mention that the 10 patriarchs produced many other children along the way, and it is these who now represent the dark side of the youngster's development, which must somehow be eliminated. The Lord was sorry he had made humans and determined to blot them out. The Lord as aura looms over the rebellious child. The Lord, of course, will be acting primarily through the parents in this story of disciplining the naughty child. But Noah found favor in the sight of the Lord. The child's quiet side is appreciated by the parents. That's what they want to preserve. Incidentally, the name Noah, that is quiet, can also be a feminine name and is used as such in some later books of the Bible. Whereas this is specifically the story of a little boy, it could also apply to a rebellious little girl. And the Lord said to Noah, I have determined to make an end to all flesh. Out of the full circumference of human possibilities, only the quiet side will listen and acquiesce in being socialized. The rest has got to go. And the Lord said to Noah, Make yourself an ark of gopher wood, with 3 decks, and with rooms inside. So here is the Lord holding up the plan for an ark, which Noah is to make. And basically, it is a plan for the human mind, with a hierarchy of decks for levels of importance and separate compartments or memory boxes for different categories of thought. And gopher wood is what gives structure to the mind. It certainly has nothing to do with the nervous little animal we all know, but a couple of them did get on the lower deck here, flitting about perhaps like our thoughts. The Lord said, Cover the outside of the ark with pitch. When people look at you, they can't see your mind. It's covered with pitch on the outside. And the Lord said, Cover the inside of the ark with pitch. When you look out at the world, you can't see into your own mind. It's covered with pitch on the inside. Those thoughts in there are dark until you bring them out into the light. In this illustration, you're looking into the open hull from the top, but it could equally be the outside of the hull from the bottom. And this previous illustration could equally be painting the inside of the ark, shown in a cutaway view. And so it is, we sometimes confuse what is on the inside of our minds with what is on the outside. For I will bring a flood of waters, said the Lord, to destroy all flesh. A flood of tears to drown all unacceptable thought and behavior into the sea of the unconscious. The Lord said, Take your 3 sons on board the ark. Honor, passion, and mental expansion go in, but also the idea of having and preserving children. It is of primary importance, and the first thing that must go into the ark of the mind. And the Lord said, "Take your wife on board." The idea of a spouse comes after the idea of children. And here she seems somewhat reluctant to come on board. Incidentally, there is no specific word in Hebrew for wife. The expression is his woman, which for a toddler could equally be the idea of mother. And the Lord said, "Take your sons' wives also." So here they are, counterparts to honor, passion, and mental expansion. Thus we have an expanding sense of family and community. Again, people are of primary importance and go into the memory box, the ideas to be preserved first. And the Lord said, "Bring in pairs of all the animals." So here we see all kinds of animals going into the ark at the top. And down towards the center, we can just make out the face of a small child with crocodile eyes and turtle mouth, and all the animals going into his expanded head above. And the Lord said, "Bring in 7 pairs of all the clean animals, and food for everyone on the ark." So here we see cattle and sheep going in, some of which will be used for food, as well as the plants at the center. Incidentally, animals, which are characterized by being able to move on the face of the earth, can also symbolize various movements of the human body. And the Lord said, "Bring on board 7 pairs of all the birds." So flying birds are going in from above, and ground fowl from below, some of which will also be used for food. The flying birds may also represent the spirit diving to safety from impending disaster. Certainly there's going to be a major transformation in the child's brain. Sure enough, on the very day they all came aboard, the fountains of the deep burst forth, and the windows of heaven were opened. And so the punishment of the naughty child begins, as tears come pouring from above, and fountains from below. And the Lord shut him in. The naughty child is being confined, with a wall of tears between what is to be preserved, Mr. Quiet, and what is to be drowned, all that loud, naughty behavior. The waters increased for 40 days. The highest mountains became submerged, and the ark floated on the face of the waters. So here's the ark, and the other dark areas represent mountain peaks in varying stages of submersion. Maybe you can also just make out the head and shoulders of a small child crying, with the ark now being his mouth, and the greatest deluge in the outer circle where his brain is. You might also see a troubled parental face formed by the mountain peaks below. Eyes, mouth. This hurts me more than it does you. Birds, beasts, and humans, all with breath of life, were drowned. At the top, humans, then animals of various kinds, and down towards the center, an upside-down giraffe, like a hand reaching up for mercy. Many faces of distress. A closer look at the drowning humans, almost a metaphor for the human condition, splashing about on the surface for a while, then going under, descending down, down, deep into the sea of the unconscious, a graveyard for everything loud and unacceptable. Only Noah was left, and those that were with him on the ark. Noah and his family on the top deck, the domestic animals on the middle deck, with the wild animals below. Birds flit about on all levels, like our thoughts, making connections between the various compartments of the mind. But God remembered them and made a wind. The waters receded. And after 5 months, the ark came to rest on Mount Ararat. The wind here seems to be affecting mainly the sea, with the ark of the mind resting high up in relative quiet. After 40 days, Noah opened the window and sent forth a raven. A black mood can be sensed coming from the confined space where a child is being punished. And this now is back at the end of the initial 40 days of flooding. The raven went to and fro until the waters were dried up. So here we see the raven flapping its wings, drying up the waters. Maybe we can also make out the scowling face of a toddler forced into quiet time. Any of the pairs of wings can be the eyes. Or maybe we're looking at the turmoil inside his head. In either case, where there's a black mood, there are no longer tears. But remember, it said, God made a wind to dry up the waters. So which was it? God or the raven? The black mood of the child or the mood of the parents outside the door? Maybe a bit of both. Then he sent forth a dove to find a quiet place to settle, but it returned. The dove is the peace offering. Okay, Mom, okay, Dad, I'm ready to come out now. I'll be good. Of course he'll be good. Only Mr. Quiet with his entourage is still alive. After 7 days, he sent her out again, and she returned with an olive branch. Sent a third time, the dove did not return. The peace offering is accepted. A quiet place, that is, a Noah place, was found to settle, and the dove is building a nest. After almost a year, Noah removed the weatherboards. He looked out, and the ground was dry. The tears are dried up, and here he is at the top, throwing off the weatherboards. But why doesn't he come out? It's kind of like the door is open, but he prefers to stay inside and mope. The pattern of descending boards gives us a clue. They make the face of an Egyptian pharaoh. Eyes, mouth, and his projected white beard is at the very center of the snowflake. And Noah is on his mind. The Egyptian pharaoh is the embodiment of godlike parental authority, and that's what Noah is afraid of. Though there is no mention here in the Bible of a pharaoh, he does appear prominently in the later biblical book of Exodus, which can be read as an allegory of growing up, a transformation which also takes place through water when Pharaoh's army is drowned. Almost 2 months later, God said to Noah, "Go forth from the ark." So here he is coming out at last. But he doesn't leave the ark entirely behind. That place of confinement is now internalized and will be carried with him for the rest of his life as his accessible subconscious mind. A memory box, a place for thought, and a refuge in times of trouble. And God said, "Go forth with your wife, and with your sons, and with your sons' wives." So here we see his family projected out ahead of him. Some of the women in the family way. All that was inside the ark of the mind is now projected out into the world and becomes the template by which the world is seen and made. And God said, "Bring out all the animals." So here we see Noah, this time in the lead, bringing out the animals. And there's kind of a frowning dark cloud over his head. As was said before, when some of the animals were being loaded on the ark, they can also symbolize movements of the human body. And Noah, with his new, reflective, self-conscious mind, is now responsible for the movements or actions of his body. Previously, the youngster's actions were uncontrolled, and that's what got him into so much trouble. But now, movements are more inhibited, less free. Responsibility for his actions now weighs heavily over him. And God said, "Bring out the birds." And this perhaps is the bright side of having this new mind box. The spirit birds can be seen flying out from his eyes, soaring to the heavens. Evidence of expanding thought with all its new possibilities. Then Noah took of every clean animal and bird, and on an altar made a burnt offering. And the odor was pleasing to the Lord. So here's Noah at the center, presenting his offering from the clean animals and birds, which are what is eaten, of course. And at the top, we see the towering Nobodaddy, the image of parental authority, taking it all in. But reflected down at the bottom of the snowflake, we have the true reaction. The sacrifice now becomes the upturned mouth of a grinning face. Hooray! The kid finally has his act together. Then God placed a rainbow in the sky as a sign that never again would there be such a flood. Grown-ups don't cry like little children. Here then is Noah, with just his head above the earthly horizon, in the realm of sky and clouds and birds, and yes, the rainbow too. A reminder, perhaps, that light, refracted through tears, is broken into many colors. And here the rainbow becomes the projected aura of Noah's new mind, with his heart at the center, touching the auras of minds to either side of him, and by extension, the full circle of humanity.